remember anything from the past week. They're annoyed because he's been treating them like servants this whole time, and now his reputation is ruined because of his awful behavior. They even considered taking him to an exorcist if he hadn't threatened them with an axe. Speaking of the axe, Ian curiously grabs it in his hands, completely confused about how it even ended up there. His friends quickly get hit with PTSD from the past week and just tell him to put the axe away. Meanwhile, all these brutal truth bombs start to weigh heavily on our boy. The fact that he was possessed by an evil spirit doesn't sit well with him. What makes it worse is that he doesn't recall being near any dangerous places or objects, so how could he have been possessed? Out of the blue, he starts to entertain the idea that it might be connected to that nightmare he had last night. His friends are relieved that whatever possessed him is finally gone, and thankfully it's gone before Ian could cause any more trouble than he already has. Hearing this, Ian curiously asks if he did something terrible. They agree that he did do some pretty terrible stuff. In fact, it was so crazy that he might not even be ready to hear it. He beat the second year's top student. Yes, you heard that right. Ian defeated the second year's top student, the very student hailed as the youngest aura expert, the same student who's been referred to as the monster swordswoman. Among the second years, her name is Syria Yordina. Ian is literally struggling to believe he beat that monster of a woman. As if that wasn't enough, Celine reveals that the defeat he handed her was so bad and humiliating that she had to be hospitalized for an entire week. Ian starts questioning what kind of evil spirit possessed his body to make that happen. Well, they're not sure either. But Celine reminds him that that's all in the past now, and they need to focus on the present. She asks him what he plans to do about his swordsmanship class today, because today he's supposed to face that very monster woman once again. The scene then transitions to the recent past, where Syria can be seen struggling against Ian. He's staring her down with those deadly glares, slapping her hard across the face and sending her tumbling backwards. He follows up with another brutal attack. Bro is beating the hell out of her, disregarding any offensive misogyny. The students around them are in utter awe. As far as they can remember, Syria was virtually undefeated until this moment. Even the fourth-year students had a hard time defeating her. But Ian is handling her like it's nothing possessed. Ian stands right in front of her, towering like the Sigma he has become. He finds it pathetic that, despite intentionally leaving openings for her, she falls for them and attacks without thinking. What's worse, she didn't even seem suspicious of the trap he had lured her into in the present. Ian is dreading the fight ahead. Out of everyone, why does he have to fight Syria? It would have been fine if he were up against someone he could actually defeat. But now, he's about to face the Academy's unbeatable student. Syria Ardina. Celine suggests Ian call it quits while he still has the chance. Meanwhile, other students start egging Syria on, telling her to give her best. They recall how badly she lost before, but she's still determined to fight and won't let it go. The professor always covers for her because she's strong, which is why she's under so much peer pressure. She wants her name as the strongest swordswoman. To keep flourishing, the teacher decides to commence the match. But before doing so, he reminds everyone that this match serves as a substitute for their class, and it will affect their grades. Well, that's not a good sign for our boy. While he had no problem getting defeated, the thought that this could affect his grade is enough to make him dread the whole thing. He curses the evil spirit that possessed him. Syria is a top student, so losing a few marks shouldn't hurt her. But if Ian fails this class, he'll end up living with his parents like a NEET, something he does not want in his life. As soon as the battle begins, that feisty lady launches an attack at him, and that single hit sets him flying through the air. He crashed down hard on the ground. Just the single attack is enough to make Ian realize that he's doomed. Even if he tries to keep the battle going, he's going to end up in the hospital. But still, Ian knows that if he gives up now looking miserable, Syrio will never acknowledge the battle and will demand more, so he stands up. And as he jumps into the air to strike, he notices how much lighter his body feels, and his movements are much more precise. This only makes him curious about what could have happened to him. This story takes place in an academy. There, Ian Precus is a regular student, enrolled in the Department of Swordsmanship. Third year, meanwhile, his friend Celine Haster is enrolled in the Department of Knights. Second year, then there's the third guy, Leto Einstern, who is also in the Department of Swordsmanship third year. Being average academy students, the biggest worrying for them is the usual stuff, like low grades, exams, and all that student stress, to forget about all of it. Ian and his male friend rely on a little bit of booze. After having a good time with his friends, Ian heads back and falls asleep. As his slumber deepens, his mind drifts into the realm of dreams. There he sees a battlefield littered with enemy corpses, and in the midst of it all stands a mysterious figure who oddly resembles Ian. The figure claims that Delphorum is coming, and they must stop him. Ian finally wakes up when morning strikes. The name Delphorum lingers in his mind. He's heard this name in legends before. He decides not to think too much about it and dismisses it as just a weird dream because he drank too much the night before. That's when he suddenly notices a letter on his table that definitely wasn't there before. Another strange thing he notices is that the date on his calendar has changed. It's now 7 days ahead. He picks up the letter and starts reading it from the handwriting. He can tell it's definitely written by a woman. Without even finishing the letter, Ian starts to imagine it's from some girl who has a crush on him. He might be late for class, but he's sure reading this letter will be worth it. However, after reading it, he realizes the only beautiful thing about it is the handwriting. While the sender did claim to be his fiancée, the contents of the letter are seemingly unusual. Everything written seems abstract. In the last page, he learns that the letter is from someone named Sophia from the year 570, one of the imperial calendar, on the 15th day of the month of the bow. The funny thing is that the dates on the letter don't match with the calendar. And another striking detail is the highlighted message at the end of the letter, which goes like, "If we don't protect the future, the world will perish." Annoyed, Ian crumbles the letter and tosses it into the trash, thinking it just a prank. As he walks through the crowd of students, he notices everyone is trying to avoid him, as if he's caught some contagious disease that only he can spread. They're murmuring under their breath and constantly giving him weird stares while keeping their distance. He also notices that for some mysterious reason, he's now carrying an axe. Then he spots